Today is Thursday, May 29th. We're talking about a court decision that could bring a global trade war to a halt. Also, Elon Musk's break with President Trump, and the new announcement that could send thousands of international students back home. Plus, why moms could be struggling with mental health, which Republican politicians just received presidential pardons, and how to see the phenomenon known as the Manhattanhenge today. Those stories and even more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. A bunch of President Trump's tariffs have basically been voided, a significant setback for Trump's trade agenda. A panel of federal judges blocked his administration from imposing some of his steepest tariffs on America's trading partners, saying the president does not have the authority to take that action. And so, most categories of tariffs are now not allowed. It didn't take long before the Trump administration told the court it would appeal this decision. But this order still threatens to throw a wrench in global trade talks underway now with more than a dozen other countries. It also calls into question agreements already made with China and the UK. This all goes back to power. Typically, it's the U.S. Congress that has the responsibility to set tariffs, but it delegated many powers to the president. Well, yesterday's ruling says it shouldn't have, because it's unconstitutional. On the other side, the White House says unelected judges are the ones overstepping their power, and that President Trump will keep putting America first. The three judges on the court that ruled yesterday were appointed by Presidents Reagan, Obama, and Trump. By the way, tariffed goods are still arriving at American ports every day, and now there could be some confusion over what rules apply and what to charge. So markets and businesses will likely be paying extra attention to this and whether high courts intervene. To be continued. President Trump's top advisor is officially leaving his administration. Billionaire Elon Musk says he's ending his government work and going back to spending more time on his companies. His role was temporary, so his exit is not totally unexpected, but it did come a day after he criticized Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill that's considered the centerpiece of the White House agenda by calling it too expensive. Musk also complained to the Washington Post about getting blamed for anything that went wrong. The exact circumstances around him leaving aren't known. Either way, Musk says the Department of Government Efficiency, aka DOGE, will go on without him. Musk initially promised to cut at least $2 trillion from the federal government's budget. He has since lowered that target to $150 billion, but has upended many federal agencies. And Musk now says, quote, "I think I've done enough." Chinese students studying in the U.S. were put on notice this week. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the U.S. will start aggressively revoking their visas and will change the visa criteria so all future applications from China and Hong Kong face more scrutiny. His statement did not say if this would impact all students from China, but Axios cites sources who say it will, accusing China of sending students to America's best colleges and research universities just to steal intellectual property. So far, no comment from the Chinese government. China had the second most students in the U.S. of any country last year, just behind India. So hundreds of thousands of them could be affected. Israel says it accomplished one of its top goals in Gaza, that Hamas's Gaza chief had been killed. He was the target of an Israeli strike on a hospital earlier this month. And now Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says it was successful. Even more, he said there has been a dramatic turn just in the last couple of days toward what he called a complete defeat of Hamas. He also added how Israel took control of food distribution, though that effort has a lot of opposition. Just yesterday, the United Nations condemned the aid program since several Palestinians were hurt and even killed across 2 days of deliveries. Crowds have overwhelmed the sites in a desperate attempt to get food, and the Israeli military says it has fired warning shots to control the chaos. But a Red Cross field hospital says dozens of people have suffered gunshot wounds, including women and children. Now the UN says things could get worse. It warns about a risk of friction between Israeli troops guarding the aid and people seeking supplies, and desperation that could lead to stampedes. It also says even if the program works exactly how it's intended, that it still won't be able to feed Gaza's 2.3 million people. In the meantime, the aid program says it's going to keep scaling up operations. The first tropical depression of the season has formed in the Pacific Ocean, and it's expected to strengthen into Tropical Storm Alvin anytime now. At last check, it was churning southwest of Mexico, but it's expected to keep strengthening over the next few days, bringing at least some rain to Mexico. What happens next is more uncertain. One possibility is it weakens while staying offshore. Another is for the system to become a hurricane or otherwise continue on a trajectory that could really do damage. Some rain could reach Texas and New Mexico, but significant impacts are not likely here in the U.S. More news still coming up, but first, thanks to our sponsor, OneSkin. If you don't already know, my go-to skincare is now OneSkin. I love the feel of all their products on my skin, and I feel like it's the most efficient way to get results. Between work, kids, errands, and everything else, a 10-step skincare routine is not my priority. But with OneSkin, I know I'm still getting everything I need and deserve for my skin. Their products are multitaskers, hydrating, protecting, and supporting my skin's long-term health thanks to their OS1 peptide. It targets the cells that accelerate the visible signs of aging, like wrinkles, thinning skin, and dull complexion. OneSkin supports the skin at a deeper level, so even if I'm running on fumes, I know my skin is still getting the best. I've even been taking their moisturizers and sunscreens with me to travel because they're exactly what I need every day, no matter what. And for a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using my code NEWSWORTHY at oneskin.co. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Again, get 15% off at oneskin.co with the code NEWSWORTHY. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Give your skin the scientifically proven, gentle care it deserves with OneSkin. Now back to the news. New research highlights a maternal mental health crisis happening in the U.S. The American Medical Association published the study this week, and in it, nearly 200,000 mothers of children up to age 17 were asked to report on their own conditions. And the results found a 64% increase in moms saying their mental health is fair or poor as compared to 2016. Only a quarter of mothers said they were in excellent mental health. The study also looked at changes for fathers, and it also found mental health declines, but they did have far better scores than the mothers did. It says more research is needed to pinpoint what's causing this crisis. But study authors have their theories, like social isolation, rising substance use disorders, as well as broader stressors like inflation, racism, gun violence, and climate change. The U.S. government decided to cut off Moderna's funding as the drug maker was working on a new bird flu vaccine made with the same technology as the COVID-19 shots. Under President Biden, the health department awarded Moderna the contract worth hundreds of millions of dollars, hoping to prevent a potential future pandemic. And so far, the drug maker says trials have been showing promise. But the new health department under President Trump now says investment in the vaccine was not significantly or ethically justifiable. It says the issue is with the mRNA technology, saying it's under-tested. Health experts were quick to point out, though, that the mRNA vaccines for COVID-19 were created under the first Trump administration. They've since been administered to hundreds of millions of people around the world. The dean of the Brown University School of Public Health called them one of the most widely used and widely studied vaccines in human history. For now, Moderna says it's going to look into other paths forward. President Trump's pardoning spree continued this week with two former Republican politicians. Former Congressman Michael Grimm represented parts of New York City until 10 years ago when he pleaded guilty to felony tax evasion. In recent years, he's been an on-air personality on the right-wing network Newsmax and has been a public supporter of President Trump's. He claims his case was politically motivated. Trump also pardoned former Connecticut Governor John Rowland. He resigned back in 2004 in the face of a federal corruption investigation. He pleaded guilty later that year. Then, 10 years later, Rowland was convicted again of public corruption. Both former politicians had already served their time in prison, but now their records have been cleared, so they no longer have any limits and can, again, do things like vote and serve on a jury. Meanwhile, President Trump says he's considering a pardon for the men accused of planning to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Prosecutors said they held meetings in a business that had a secret trap door, used encrypted text messages, and spoke about blowing up a bridge to keep law enforcement from responding. But the defense team said they were egged on by government informants and FBI agents. Now, Trump says it looks like the case was a railroad job, so he's taking a look at a pardon. Vice President J.D. Vance is praising the cryptocurrency industry and encouraging crypto enthusiasts to stay involved in politics. He spoke to a Bitcoin conference yesterday where he said the industry has already proven to be able to quickly organize and influence politics since it spent heavily to help President Trump win the election. Since then, Vance says the Trump administration has proven to be a champion of cryptocurrency. In fact, just before the speech, the Labor Department made it easier for Americans to put digital currencies in their retirement accounts. And Bitcoin is now up more than 50% since Trump was first elected. Democrats accuse the president and his family of trying to enrich themselves through private crypto ventures. Just this week, Trump's media company announced it was raising $2.5 billion to buy Bitcoin. The president and first lady also have their own meme coins. It's time for the best sunsets New York City has to offer. It's Manhattanhenge season. The phenomenon happens when the sun sets perfectly aligned with the east-west orientation of Manhattan's grid layout, so it illuminates both the north and south sides of every cross street. The term was coined by Neil deGrasse Tyson, who drew the parallel between the New York sunsets and the ancient monument of Stonehenge. This year's season kicked off yesterday when the top half of the sun above the horizon was visible, framed by the NYC grid. Today, the full sun will be perfectly positioned, looking like a ball between the high-rise buildings. Thousands of people show up to watch it each year, especially along New York's famous 42nd Street, alongside the Chrysler Building and other iconic landmarks. So expect to see plenty of pictures gracing social media this week. Manhattanhenge will happen one other time this year, in July. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday. But first, this episode is sponsored by Hiya Health. One easy way that I've found to make sure my kiddo is getting the nutrition he needs is with Hiya's children's vitamins. In fact, even before they became a sponsor, I was giving my son their best-selling children's vitamins and the Hiya probiotics already. Why? Well, most children's vitamins seem basically like candy in disguise, but not Hiya. Hiya has 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk. They're instead pediatrician-approved chewables that my son seriously looks forward to having every morning. Plus, I appreciate that every single batch is third-party tested for heavy metals and microbials in a qualified GMP-compliant lab using scientifically validated testing methods. Oh, and if you're tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens, Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods. It's a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with more than 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. Yeah, half off. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website, so go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy, hiyahealth.com/newsworthy, and get your kids the full-body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Now back to Thing to Know Thursday. New data shows 4% of Americans are now taking GLP-1 drugs for either weight loss or diabetes. Those are the injectable meds that include Ozempic and Mounjaro. The nonprofit Fair Health says the percentage of people prescribed one of them solely for being overweight or obese jumped by nearly 2,000% over the last 5 years. And the drugs are only expected to get more popular, especially now that there's not a shortage, and since a couple of insurance companies started offering discounts. Supporters say GLP-1s are effective and generally well-tolerated and have improved the quality of life for millions of people. But critics, like Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, say the pharmaceutical industry is just profiting off Americans' poor health when the issue could be better addressed with healthier food and lifestyle choices. Either way, analysts estimate that sales of anti-obesity medications could reach $100 billion by the end of the decade. Thank you so much for listening today and every day. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.